Hello, hey there everybody, this is Russ. I'm testing this thing. Uh, hello. Hello! Are we live? I'm just testing out this audio hardware and software. I'm hoping to do a bike build, um, and we'll see if this works. One thing I'm testing in particular is I'm actually using a lavalier, so I'm trying to see if this is actually working. Um, so apologies if you've actually accidentally stumbled in here. Hey there, Jake. You stumbled into a test. Hey Matt, no live build, just testing out the audio hardware. Can you guys hear me? Is there audio? It's working? Okay, here's the thing. I've got a wireless lavalier that I've jury rigged to a mixer that's plugged into the computer. So I'm gonna walk away and tell me if the audio still sounds good. Can you still hear it? Testing, walking away. All right, cool. Audio very choppy. Okay. Audio is okay, not great. That's a bummer. Sounds a bit robotic. Okay. So I'll show you guys what's going on here. I've got a wireless lav that's plugged into a mixer. So I usually use this into the GH5. That's how I film the videos. So I'm seeing if I can jury rig a wireless audio solution, just because when I'm going to be building the bike, I'm going to be moving around and not going to be near the computer at all. So the video is good, audio sounds good from afar. Yeah, you know, I literally downloaded OBS, which is a video encoder, and I have no idea why why the video is not full screen. So hopefully I will figure that out before we do the build. But while you guys are in here, I'm gonna adjust the audio settings on the mixer. Let me know if this sounds any better. Okay, messing around. I don't know if it still sounds tinny. Yeah. So while you guys are in here, I thought I would show you this guy. This is the Bomb Track Adventure. Built it up yesterday. Kind of a departure from the bikes I usually prefer, because it's got a squishy fork, which is kind of interesting. It's got a dropper post button. I don't even know if this is the right place to put the lever for the dropper post. I tried to look it up online and couldn't find some kind of formal place or normal place where people put it on the drop bar handlebar. So if you guys know, let me know. Let's see. So I don't know. Is this where you put the dropper post button on the drop bar bike, or is it supposed to go in the hooks? I don't know. So I built up this bike yesterday. You guys know about this one. This is the Cressabambora. Matt was in town like 2 days ago. We were supposed to be negotiating the price for this bike, and as we were riding, he was like, Russ, I'm going to break your heart, but I need the bike back. So apparently, Team Brooks, the team that he rode with at Dirty Kansas, they're doing Grinduro in Japan. So he needs this bike back. He's going to pick it up in a couple days. And I'm just going to have to wait until he gets the new shipment of Crest Bike or Bambora, which won't be for another 4 months. So that sucks. But what can you do? All right. So I fiddled with the audio a little bit. Did it sound any better? Yeah, Marcos, the Crest Bike is so sweet. I was hoping to be able to get it this summer so I can actually do some rides with it, but I guess Matt needs it back, so what can I do? I know, even after licking the crust, I told him that I licked it. What's funny too is I don't know if you guys know Jambi on Instagram. She helps run Crust Bikes Australia. No change in the audio. Okay. She was actually in town today. She was touring with Ultra Romance and Noms. They were all three of them and Sarah Swallow were in town. Grabbed a quick coffee with them, and I told Jory guy, I believe that's her real name, that Matt wouldn't sell me his bike, and she was like, "What?" Okay, so consensus is the audio sounds like I'm talking into a tin can. I've got some knobs, so you guys tell me if any of this. I've pumped up the line USB. Okay, it sounded way better when I was away from the desk. Adjust the echo. You know what? There's no echo, but there is a main mix knob. I'm gonna crank up the main mix knob. This one. It's a very tight echo. It's fine. Yeah, you know what? That might be a kind of a digital feedback thing, which is kind of a bummer. This is my podcasting setup, not necessarily intended for live streaming, so it's kind of a bodge. I'm actually using the wireless lavalier I usually use for just videos, with running it through the podcasting mixer into the computer to hopefully do live stream. Yeah. So if it sounds decent, then I think I might just go with this. It's better when I talk lower. Okay. So I'll show you what I'll be unboxing. Hopefully you guys can hear me as I walk away. Let me know. That's the whole point of doing the lavalier. Oh. And it's this bike, the Thesis. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this brand. I got to meet one of the co-owners, Randall, at Sea Otter. He seemed like a cool guy. I mean, I think his story is he used to work at Specialized. Not quite sure what he did there, but he wanted to do a different brand. And he started this with a quasi-consumer direct business model. I think the idea was to have the customers buy it, but it would get shipped to a local bike shop. The bike shop would get some money for building up the bike. So in that way, kind of, incentivized the bike shops working on or building up these bikes. And it's should be cool. This is kind of his do-it-all bike. I think they only have one model, but with different builds. This is supposed to be 650B with a dropper post also. So I've gone from never having ridden a bike with a dropper post to having two bikes with dropper post enabled. So, okay, audio sounds better. Okay, so we're okay with audio. Tell us about the Wolverine. Wolverine. So this is the version 3 or 4 Wolverine. Still giving it a good test. And this is how they sent it. It's got some cool parts. This is a IRD 4630 650B fixation carbon fork. It's got two bolt mount. Someone brought up a good point in the comments on a previous video is that do you actually need a 3-bolt mount to use an anything cage, which I thought was a great question. So I might figure that out with this bike. The weirdest thing is it's got these guys, the Condor bar. Yeah, you got it. Chris spotted them. So I'm not exactly sold. I don't know if you guys can see, but it goes up and across. And my first thought was maybe it was for suspension, but in reading their copy, it sounds like, if you have a bike and they chop the steer tube too low and you couldn't get it high enough with a stem, you could jack it up another, I don't know, maybe 1.5 inches with the bars. So yeah, I mean, I think they're super comfy. I wish they were wider for gravel riding. I mean, I think if that's a problem that you have, these bars solve that. But generally pretty good. It's pretty shallow drop. So if you're not into like a super deep drop, these work. It's a nice shape. I think this is a little problematic when you try to mount stuff because this is a different height from here. So when I put a handlebar roll on here, it actually brought it too close to the wheel. So yeah, I think my favorite part about how similar is a crust? How similar to the crust is a Wolverine? That's a good question. They're both on the lively side of the spectrum. I would say the Wolverine is probably more lively all around. I think they have a similar rear end. The crust front end is a little bit more slack. This is a little bit more responsive. In some ways, this is a closer bike to the Midnight Special. So if you're looking for a Midnight Special alternative, you hate the hot mayonnaise, and you like the Wolverine colors, and this is actually, this would be a good alternative. In terms of tubing, I think the crust still has a little bit more lively tubing. This bike generally feels a little bit more stiffer. Carbon fork front end, it's stiffer in the front. Yeah, I mean, it's not a bad bike. It's super fun. It's just, it's not the Bambora. Is this tucked? It's semi-tucked. I think the rear end is like 425. Yeah, it's definitely on the tuckish side. I consider anything below 430 lively. So yeah. What else? Yeah, problem solver bow ties would be a great alternative. My favorite part of this bike, I have to tell you guys, is the brakes. It's the same brakes that Matt put on the Bambora, his personal bike, and it's Yokozuna Ultimos, which are the rebranded like June R1s or something. But anyways, it's a hydraulic cable disc brake. So it's cable actuated, but there is a mineral oil reservoir in here. And apparently you don't have to service it. I was emailing someone at Mary Sales and asked them about, is there a maintenance schedule? Do you have to bleed it? And they said, no, there's no maintenance. It's got ports to access the oil, but that's only for the factory, but it's not intended for user service. And if you do, it kind of voids the warranty. So yeah, let's see. All right, yeah. So Steve says he just got his Brompton from Al. Al is a good man. I like him. He's a good guy. Steel bike. Yeah, steel frame, carbon fork. I think I weighed it, and it's maybe around 26, 27 pounds. So actually par with the polyvalent. So it's not the lightest bike, but it's definitely a little bit snappier than the polyvalent, and even the crust. But I think the crust is charming because it's snappy in the back, but it's chill in the front. And that's why I like it. So that is the Wolverine. Oh. Let's see. Why not Soma carbon fork? That's a good question. I don't know. It was all totally up to them to build up the bike. I actually requested it with a steel fork, just because I'm probably more into that. But they sent it with a fixation fork. So yeah. Let's see. Thanks, Chris. Yeah, the fender is a Toe Peak Defender 29. We move it from bike to bike. Works pretty good. So cool. Well, it's good to know that I got this all working. Again, I literally downloaded OBS, which is, you need some kind of digital encoding software to interface with the YouTube. That fork has mounts on the arms. Right? If you mean like on the shoulder of the fork, no, it's got two ball spaced mounts on the side, and I think it'll take a front rack. Yeah, it's got eyelets for I believe a front rack, if not at least a fender. So yeah. What was I gonna say? Yeah, so this is, yay, Perth. Yeah, I was just saying, I don't know if you caught it, but Joria from Crest Bikes Australia was in town today. So she told me a little bit about riding a bike in Australia. Sounds hard. Cool. What else? Yeah, so the plan is I'm trying to figure out interesting bits of content, which I don't have to edit too much. So I thought, if you guys wanted to witness some really mediocre bike mechanic skills, it would make for some good comedy. I could field some questions as we nerd out about new bikes. So my thinking is I'll probably schedule it for Wednesday, and we will open the Thesis up together. I'm a little concerned because the box is very small, so that usually means a lot more assembly. Hopefully the fork's installed, because I have none of those tools. Yeah, the DK videos were a blast. It was hard, but I think I was stoked on the final outcome of the videos. Next tour, we're reconning a loop in Idaho, which we might call the Idaho Trout Back. It follows a couple forks of a certain river, and then we were out there last weekend just checking out the roads, and it looked pretty awesome. Are the cable actuated hydraulic brakes? Yes, they are that good. I first tried them on Matt's bike here, Ultimos, and I was like, what the? I mean, it just feels really good. Like, it's got, you have nearly the same amount of modulation. You have amazing stopping power from the hoods. Is it 100% like identical to hydraulics? No, but you get, I would say, about 95% there. And what's awesome is, it's cable actuated. So if the cabling's funky and you have to change it because of a bag or a handlebar, it's less of a pain in the butt than having to deal with any kind of hydraulic fluid. So I'm super stoked on it. Like, I'm gonna personally buy a pair on my next build. If you guys support us on Patreon, then you guys have the 20% discount at the Soma Fab store, so you can get 20% off these brakes, which I think is a pretty good deal. Let's see. Do we ever host group destination rides? We have not, but we're actually gonna do some events, some meetups in the future. We're gonna be in Portland weekend of the 25th, and we're gonna do a meetup at Ravello Bike Shop. I might have a mini art show with some watercolors, and then in September we're gonna go to Seattle. Swift is hosting us. I think we're gonna do like a 15-mile, like pretty chill ride and end up at headquarters. And then we're planning other things around the country. So currently, I guess we are doing, not like a full-on destination ride, but certainly meetups in the near future. How long till Laura's breadwinner is done? So we heard from Ira last week. It's in the build. They're taking pictures. We're hoping that it would ship out sometime this week, if not next. So it is coming. It's taking on the longer side of their estimated delivery date. It sounds like they've been really busy since acquiring Sugar Wheelworks, working out, like, incorporating Sugar into just the flow and getting all their systems in place. So, when are we going to do Ragbri? Someday. We want to do it, but man, that's a lot of people. Like, I don't do too well in crowds. That's why I have a YouTube channel, because I can make it from our our apartment. But I'd like to experience it. It just sounds like an amazing event. Any thoughts on the Canyon Grail? Is the Grail the one with the double-decker handlebar? Um, I have mixed feelings about the double-decker handlebar, but I've not had any experience with the Grail personally. I've reached out to the Canyon folks. They just haven't been too responsive. Maybe I'll try again. We'll see. So, yeah. Nice. Colton, thanks for following us all that time. Yeah, the one cool thing about just like the website and beyond the YouTube is, there are people that have followed us from like the very beginning, which is intense. I mean, that's like a decade. So we're totally stoked on people that have followed us along the journey, along across different mediums, along across different types of bike touring, different bikes. So we feel really lucky to have like super hardcore kind of supporters. So, yeah. All right, your wife has decided, Sean. Yes, the next bike tour we're doing is going to be fishing centered, so there will be more bike fishing videos coming soon. So, let's see. Awesome. Yeah. So Joey asks, first gravel grinder, want to make it a mule for fishing. What should my first bag and rack be? Depending on your rod setup, I would probably just get a rear rack. If it's a fly rod, you can usually bungee the rod tube, to the top of the rear rack. So something like a tubus. Actually, any rack will do. I mean, fishing gear doesn't weigh that much, and any painter will do. But definitely the rear rack would be the least fussy way to get a bike fishing setup on the road. There's a lot more exotic ways to do it on the front, but the rear rack is really easy. So trying to decide between a Rove SD or a Sutra. I like the Rove. I don't know too much about the Sutra. I'd have to look at Bike Insights and then compare it to the bike flavor wheel, I guess. I don't know. What have you guys thought of the bike flavor wheel? Was that useful or was that dumb? I know it's not perfect. I got a lot of flack from people that love Low Trail saying that I threw Low Trail under the bus, which was not my intent. I mean, if you guys look at the flavor wheel for like whiskey, I mean, there's flavors like Band-Aid, medicinal, oily, and within the flavor wheel context, those aren't bad things. Those are just adjectives, and that's when I say twitchy or nervous, it's not in a negative sense. It's just kind of like how you would taste something. So I don't know what to do. Like I own 2 Low Trail bikes. I love them. I do think they are super nervous and twitchy when there's nothing on the front, and that's not saying that they're bad. Yes, I understand that they ride better with a load, but that's just how I would describe them. Sweet, Ian. Glad you can use it at your shop. My goal is to try to demystify a lot of this black box stuff in bikes. I think the industry makes it too complicated. We don't do ourselves any favors when we try to make it really difficult for the common person to understand bikes. So, yeah, Adam, it does need some refining. It's not perfect, but it's a start. One of my mantras in life is don't let perfection get in the way. Yeah. Aero bars on gravel bikes for long rides. People do it. I mean, I think it makes sense. I personally haven't tried aero bars, but I mean, I think if, I know like during the Divide, a lot of people that have used them in the past to great effect. So, yeah. Well, cool. Anything else cool to show you guys? Let's see. Oh. What do you guys think of this? So, yeah. So there's a company called Cirrus, based in Bellingham. They sent this over. I might put this on the Jones bike, and it's a suspension seat post. It looks kind of complicated though, and it's heavy. It is so heavy. But you can see I don't know if I can activate it. Springs. Yeah, so we'll see. A big fan of Redshift in the front, so I'm exploring other options on the back. So we'll try this. Richie Components is sending over like a super compliant carbon seat post, so that might be the more like performance oriented version. But this one, man, you could club someone to death with this. Yeah, it is 27.2. Why is the video so small? I should figure this out. Let me see. Settings, output mode. I have no idea why the video is that small. But hopefully I will figure it out by then. Let me see. Controls, studio mode. Are there more Supple patches or stickers on the way? Yes, we've got a box full of patches and stickers, no new designs, but the pre-existing ones are still available for sale. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what the deal with the Echo is. I don't know if it's because if you missed it, this is my setup. I'm using a wireless lav going into a USB mixer that I use for podcasting into the computer. So there just might be a lot of digital things going on. But we'll see. Figuring it out. Will I do custom watercolor paintings? Yes. You can email me. I don't say yes to everything. I just want to make sure I can do a good job. But I do. Yeah. Can't wait for the Thesis, the bike review. Yep. It should be an interesting build. The box looks small. Hopefully it's not too disassembled. So we'll see. What else do I got here? I might do a rack installation of this guy. This is the Obento rack by Simworks. I don't know if you can see, but it's a cool design. This is it's what's called a demi-porteur. So full-on porteur rack is really wide and big, kind of pizza box shape. This is on the small side. So this will support a rando bag really well. You could put a basket on it. It's like falling apart, but you guys get the picture. I might install this soon. Yeah, Marcos, I'm stoked that the patch helped. I love the word further in that context. I was a literature major, so for me, it's referencing Ken Kesey, who was kind of a hippie writer. He had this crazy bus, the magic bus, and on the bus it had the word further, not farther, further. And to me, cycling isn't about going as fast as you can go, or necessarily even like distance wise, but there's an internal journey that goes on. Yeah, so it means a lot to me on a lot of different levels. So do we have any pets? No. We can't have a dog in the apartment. I'd love a fishing dog, but it's not on the cards. So yeah. What else? I'm trying to think if I have anything else cool to show you guys. I don't know. I've noticed a couple of you guys asking about watches. I've gotten into watches recently. Not super expensive ones, but I enjoy them in the same way that one enjoys a bike. Is this kind of piece of machinery that you can just, it works. It tells the time, which is pretty effing cool. See you, Chris. So what happened to bikes and bourbon? That's a good question. Lots of people ask. So when Toph and I were doing it, we were drinking pretty hard, and my liver was starting to suffer, like no joke. So we decided to kind of pull back on it. He also, he's got a family. He started an online teaching position at Portland University, teaching children's literature. So just kind of life and obligations. I'm thinking, though, if I get this live stream dialed, then would be then this might be a good format to bring back bikes and something. Maybe not bourbon because that was a lot, but that'd be pretty cool. So we'll see. He's gonna come over tomorrow, and I'll broach it with him, and maybe we'll see bikes and something, bikes and bikes again via live stream. Yeah, it would be a live stream with Toffer. We just have to see if it works out in our schedules. Thanks, Scotterbrains. Awesome. Thanks for the super chat. Yeah, so we, bikes and bourbon with Toffer in the future as a live stream. Actually, one of the biggest hangups with me doing bikes and bourbon was the editing, because we'd shoot for about an hour and I'd cut it down to half an hour. There's a lot of bullshitting that went on, and it was just a lot to edit. So that's maybe if we do it as a live stream, it'll be less painful. What's the bike in the back of you near the window? Oh, that one is the Crust bikes. Oh, near the window, that is Soma Wolverine. Soma Wolverine. That's going to be reviewed soon. Yeah. Let's see what else. Yeah, so watches. G-Shock. That's I have a soft spot for the 80s. So Casio actually has a heritage line of their digital watches. So you can get these for super cheap. If you guys watch Stranger Things, like I forget the guy's the character, the cop guy, he was rocking one of these metal stainless steel Casios, which is super fun. So, yep, SKX 013, smaller version, not the 007. Seiko 5 with an 8.0, that's an awesome watch. Let's see. If you guys, I'm going to show you guys my, an F991W, is that, I don't know if that's a black one. This is the, what is this? This one doesn't have the reference number on it. But it's, thank you, Anton. Let's see what else. Okay, this is a goofy watch. A bunch of you have called me out on the gold watch. Here it is. It's a digital Casio World Time. And what's cool about this is, I don't know if you guys can see, but it's got a little world map representation. So you can flip through the time zones and see what time it is. And I actually find this kind of useful. Like I track when our viewership goes up and down, because we have worldwide viewership. So there's always a little spike when it gets to Sydney, Adelaide. We've got a good viewership in New Zealand, parts of Canada. So it's fun for me to flip through the world time and just see what time it is where our viewers are at. So this is like, if you're gonna get a gold watch and don't want to spend a lot of money, but just have a little bit of flair, kind of, I guess it's like 80s hipster vibe. The Casio Gold World Time is the way to go. Yeah. So, all right, John, thanks for joining us. How do we stop existential gear lust? There's no stopping it. Like in Buddhist teaching, life is suffering. You're never going to attain the perfect bike or perfect tire. There's always going to be something else on the horizon to cause life's pain. So I think part of it is just accepting that life is mostly suffering, and try not to buy everything that you see. Thanks, Sean. That's one of the Brian, awesome. The Hiawatha Trail is bonkers. You get there, and it's hard to believe that it exists. It's just like this, these huge trestles in the middle of the forest. It's amazing. You'll totally dig it. What do I think of the Marin Nicasio? I've been trying to get that to review. I think could potentially be a really good budget bike. I mean, I think MSRP is like $700. I saw that at Sea Otter there was like a 1x650B build that looked really intriguing. So I'm trying to get a hold of them. It sounds like Marin's still waiting for for the production bike for their bikes to arrive, and when they come, hopefully get a chance to try that out. How am I feeling about Compass tires these days? I totally dig them. I think there's lots of options now. I think WTB might have eaten part of their lunch with the Horizon line. There's the stuff from Terrain and Terravale. Those tires are really good. So I think they kicked off this whole supple bike trend for sure. I think what Jan has done is a big reason why we're riding the bikes we're riding now. If between him and Grant, if they weren't like flying that flag about wider tires and all this other stuff, we wouldn't be riding the cool bikes that we have now for sure. So, Adam, have I ever tried out Tenkara rod? Yes. We actually know Daniel, who started Tenkara USA, who was the first to bring Tenkara to the States. And we fished one of his very first rods back in 2009. So I've actually been fishing Tenkara a long time. I like to mix it up. I like the nerdery of Western fly fishing gear just because it can be really complex, lots of nuance. But when it's appropriate, I'll fish Tenkara. Let's see. Whew. What do I think of the Koga World Tour bike? I've not looked at it recently. I remember when Laura and I were doing our big cross country trip. That was one of the bikes that we really wanted to try, but it wasn't available very much in the States. But I've not looked at it since. What do you consider to be an ideal trail figure for flat topography? So that's a tough question. It depends. I think ideal trail is less about necessarily the topography, but just your preference for how you want the front end to handle. If you want a bike that feels really lively and responsive in the front, sub 55 I consider low trail. The Polyvalent has a trail number I think in the 40s, and that feels really good to me. On paved roads. I was going to make a video about this, but my preference for low trail versus high trail really changes on kind of the surface. I find that I like a higher trail when I'm descending rougher stuff. I mean, that's why mountain bikes are essentially high trail bikes. You can't. There's just no way to argue that. So if you value stability, then high trails are the way to go. Thanks, K-Man Cross. Thank you. Thanks for the super chat. So trails up to personal preference. That's why we created the bicycle flavor wheel. I'm going to refine it over time, and we'll go from there. There have been some requests to make it into a sticker or a shirt. A viewer actually made the nice version of the bicycle flavor wheel, so I'm going to work with him hopefully to kind of refine the design a little bit. Have I ridden any vintage steel bikes? How do you think they ride feel compares to modern frames? I owned a vintage Tomasino back in the day, but that's before I'd ridden mini bikes, so it's hard to put it within a spectrum. I think typically like a higher end vintage steel bike will probably be a little bit more like supple and compliant compared to what we're getting from Surly. I love Surly bikes, but they're building for kind of in some ways, lowest common denominator, right? So they want a bike that people are going to put lots of stuff on and not break. And that kind of comes at the sacrifice of ride feel. So Surleys are definitely utility bikes. I think even All City, they have cool bikes, but like the tubing, I don't think is necessarily that great. The Crust bike really stands out to me, specifically the Bombora. because it's an interesting geometry, and you get a little bit thinner tubing, but it's still I think the frame set is a reasonable price. So like in terms of modern steel bike, cool geometry, good tubing, or at least interesting tubing, then the Crest is the way to go. It's pretty good value for the money. Thank you, Certain Perfectio and Adam. Awesome, thanks. Let's see. Instant coffee or not instant coffee while touring or bike packing? What we do is we pre-grind. So we'll get our nice artisanal beans, pre-grind it, and then make it when we're touring. We used to carry a grinder and all that stuff, but we've gone ultra light and just pre-grind the beans. Let's see. You hinted at dabbling in mountain biking. Yeah, I still suck at mountain biking. I was actually... I think my next narrated ride and watercolor video is going to be on some single track, so you guys can just witness how terrible a mountain biker I am. 2015 Trek 520 is underrated as far as tubing goes. Yeah, I had a Trek 520 in 2007, and I think at that time the Trek 520 was not very good. It's most likely probably has changed, but back then it felt like a part spin bike. It was like way over geared, and just it wasn't a very good bike back then. But maybe it's changed, so I'll keep my mind open. What's my minimum 700cc gravel tire width suppleness? Honestly, if you look at all our bikes, there's nothing narrower than 40 millimeters. It's all like 40, 42, 45, a couple 50 millimeter tires on a couple of bikes, and I'm stoked on that tire width. I think before, like a decade ago, when we first started getting the bikes, tires in that width were made for commuters or expedition touring, so they were really heavy. Favored flat protection, and they just rolled like bricks. But now we live in like a magical time with tires. So you can get like a wide tire that rolls well, super supple, not super heavy, a little bit more performance oriented. So yeah, like 40 and larger, why not? Rib bikes. Yeah, I've been, Grant has been a huge inspiration. We got to meet him, a decade ago when we were touring. I've asked a couple times just to review their bikes, but again, it's hard with smaller brands. They've got a very small demo fleet, and I totally understand. If I was a small brand and I had like 3 bikes to loan out, one's going to bicycling, and whoever else. But like I can see where we're probably not on the top priority of his media list, but we can always try. Let's see. All right, Mr. Jack, welcome to the Supple Life. T47BB on the new Trek bikes. I don't have too much experience with that. I'm actually not. I'm not sure what bottom bracket is on Laura's Breadwinner. It might be 247 or T47. We'll see. I don't know, it'll be a surprise. So Rudy, what is the best gravel tire for your Specialized Diverge? If you want to stay within the Specialized realm, we have a video on the Pathfinder Pros, which I totally enjoyed. I think they're a better tire than the WTB Horizon Byways. They've got a more meaningful tread. I think it's what the Byways tried to be, but Specialized pulled it off. Still a high center ridgeline, so it rolls fairly fast on smooth terrain, but it's got enough grip where as long as it's not too dusty or too muddy, there's some purchase on the ground. So, okay, you ride on golf ball size gravel, then probably not that tire, and probably a different bike. It's hard to say. For that, I'd probably ride 50 millimeter tires, so like the Soma Casdero. but I don't know if the Diverge would fit that. Favorite specialty coffee brand that you can. So Sean, you can. So we live in Missoula. The coffee scene is not that great, so we actually order a lot of coffee from Portland. You can get Stumptown back east for sure. Lone Pine Roasters out of Bend is really good, reasonable prices, and back porch roasters. So I'd recommend those three. Counterculture out of I think they're based out of Durham. They're really good. And let's see, Onyx out of Bentonville, Arkansas. A little bit closer to you. They make amazing coffee. Record cover on the wall. So if you watch our videos, you'll notice a record that is from our friend. That's from our friend Ben Weaver. Totally blanked on his last name. So Ben Weaver, he's based out of Minneapolis, cycling troubadour. He actually rode the Great Divide, I believe, last year, and did a whole like free concert tour to the communities along the Great Divide Trail, and they made a movie about it. He's going to be in town in September doing a live show, so that's a story of the album. Internal gear is yay or nay? I would say yay. I don't have a ton of experience. I had, the Brompton is technically internally geared. It's got a 3-speed Sturmey Archer. I don't have any experience with the roll-off. I've been talking with Daniel from Tumbleweed. He's supposed to send one in mid-August, so I'll give you my impressions of the roll-off, but you'll have to kind of wait till then. So what's with the lack of people riding rear racks these days? It's just a trend, man. No, I mean, so here's the thing. Like, I don't know how many of you guys tour with like front load riders. Depending on the bike, it rides better. I feel like if you've got a load on the rear of the bike, and you're standing and climbing, it puts a lot of lateral force on the bike and it just feels like really whippy. Whereas if you put the load on the front, you can stand and throw the bike around. It feels a lot more transparent. It doesn't feel like you have weight, and it feels like you're kind of pushing the load up rather than dragging it up from behind you. So I prefer front loading when I can, but I do have rear racks on commuter bikes. Carl, I do not listen to music while riding just because of traffic and bears. Let's see. What 3 sentences would you say to someone to get them back on the bike? I don't know. Life is short. Bikes are fun. And we all die eventually. As you can see, I'm a pessimist. I don't know. Like it's hard. You have to. I found that it's really difficult to try to make someone ride a bike. You have to approach it from what their wants and needs are. I'm lucky with Laura that both of us got into cycling at about the same time, and then, I did kind of have to talk her into bike touring, and I framed it as, hey, it's like having a European vacation here in the States. We can do wine and cheese tasting by bike, but instead of flying to France, we can do it in Central California. So depending on who the person is, you might have to tailor your approach. If I ever considered reviewing Chinese carbon frames, not really, just because I suck as a mechanic, and it's way easier for me to review completes. What do you do for bottom cushioning on longer rides? I'll wear bib shorts and just have a comfortable saddle. Sometimes it's counterintuitive. A stiffer saddle can be more comfortable than a squishy one. It really depends on like what kind of seat problem you're having. Let's see, gourmet backcountry meals or freeze dried. We typically don't do freeze dried. One of our hot cooking tips is we'll get instant mashed potatoes, and that'll be the starch. Really easy to mix up, quicker than rice, and then we'll just cook up some protein and vegetables and put it on the instant mashed potatoes, and it's a potato slurry. Cool. I'm glad you like the answer. That's my bike advocacy background shining through. Um, let's see. Jolene Howard, the fishing is doing awesome. We were just out on the big hole. It's fishing well. And here's the thing about fishing, right? It's just like bikes. The industry tries to make it more complicated than it needs to be. I mean, I think you can fish like almost all the water in the United States with like 6 flies, and you'll catch fish. What you notice when you get into it is that there are all these different names for different fly patterns, but they're all like essentially variations of like just a handful of flies. So in terms of what's working now, I fish a lot of nymphs. I've been getting into a style of fly fishing known as Euro nymphing. It's what the competitive fly fishers use, and it catches fish almost all the time. So basically, pheasant tails, hare's ear, a rubber legs pattern, girdle bug. Those are pretty solid performers. I love these off bike questions. Favorite brand of watercolors? Yeah, I use a mix of Daniel Smith and Winsor Newton. And M-Gram, just because it's available here. I find M-Gram to be pretty kind of watery. It uses honey as a binder, and it doesn't it doesn't dry up really well in the pans. So generally, I prefer Daniel Smith when I can get it, if not Winsor Newton, but Winsor Newton tends to be more expensive. Do we still ride our Via? So I actually gave my Via to a friend. Laura still rides hers. It's her daily beater. Yeah, I think it still totally holds up. I feel like they could update the design. They could come out with 650B specific models. I'd love to see it with a lighter tube set, but that'll probably never happen. Do you tie any flies? Yes, I tie all my flies. I'll show you. I've got all the fly fishing. See, I'm not just a bike nerd. I nerd out about so many things. Charlie asks, any plans on reviewing the new high-end gravel bikes from Cervelo and Pinarello? I'd like to. I don't think they'd send it to me. Here's the thing about review bikes. I know it may appear like bikes are just arriving left and right. Certainly, today it seems that way. But there's a lot of emailing and a lot of convincing. I tell them, hey, we've got this YouTube channel. The followers are super stoked. They trust the reviews. But, a lot of those brands are really focused on performance and the sport aspect of cycling. And typically what I assume is happening is a brand manager sees the channel and they're like, well, they're not racing, so why should, that's not our audience. And I think that's true to an extent. So I try to get those bikes, but there's a lot of brands that just aren't interested, and it's how it is. What about the Fargo? Fargo is probably the only salsa drop bar bike I've not ridden. I'm trying to space out the salsa reviews because we get called salsa fanboys, so maybe next year. Friar Kelton, yes, mostly catch and release. We do keep some fish on occasion, but mostly catch and release. And a lot of that is, here in Montana, you can't keep cutthroat trout, and there's a lot of them, so a lot of times we're catching fish that we can't keep. So, do I cut my own hair? No, I don't. Any recommendations for what to say to brands to convince them to send you stuff? We honestly, if you tag a brand or you message them via Instagram, if they seem to be responsive to Instagram, that helps. You guys know the Kona story. I tried to get a Kona Robe NRB DL for like a year because you guys kept requesting it. I would literally take a screenshot of every Kona Rove request and email it to, who the person I was trying to, work with. And that took a long time. Their excuse was like, we've never sent a bike to a YouTuber before. Like, what's the internet? So I don't know. Like I felt like I had to beg and plead for that bike. Just because a lot of people wanted it and wanted to get it on the channel, and now I'm kind of over begging and pleading for bikes. Like I'll ask like once or twice, but if it's not going to go anywhere, it's not going to go anywhere. So. How did you choose to live where you do? Well, currently we're in Missoula, Montana, and we're here because Laura got a job with Adventure Cycling, and they're based here, so we had to relocate. It doesn't hurt that it's great for fishing and all that stuff, so it's not a bad spot. Winter's way too long. Hello, Halimi. Cool. Let's see. Did I get all the questions? I think I got most of the questions. Any tips for actually finding gravel roads, apps, and maps? So Mr. Angel Berrigan, that's a question we get a lot. The app that we like to use that works pretty well is Ride with GPS. Not so much the app, but the desktop version. It depends on where you are, but I find that so Ride with GPS has this thing called the Ambassador Program, where certain people promote the best rides, and they have a lot of those ambassadors around the country, around the world. So these are vetted rides. A lot of them are gravel, so I would look there. Lucas, Kona Rove, Salsa Journeyman, or Diamondback Honjo? It really depends on how you want the bike to ride. They're all a little bit different. It's all nuanced, but I don't think you can go wrong with any of those. Any drop bar fat bike? I think I don't know if you guys are familiar with Bear Claw. They're based out of Michigan. They do Thai bikes. They were showing a couple of drop bar mountain bikes on their Instagram. Let's see. Clipless or flat. We actually prefer for bike touring flat pedals, just because you can do off the bike stuff. You can go on a hike. You can go fishing with them. So we typically just ride flats in some kind of shoe or sandal. Let's see. Hey there, DJ Cal from Seattle. Are you going to be at the Swift thing? We're going to be up at Swift Industries in September. I think we might be doing a ride with Martina and them. It should be fun. I'm going to bring some paintings. I might do some goofy thing where I paint Instagram photos. We're still trying to figure that out. So let's see. Hey there, Zach. From South Central and Eastern Washington. Yeah, that's a place where we want to get back to. Hopefully soon in the near future. There's lots of spots in Washington that are just like amazing, both for biking and fishing. What shoes do we use on flats? We've been riding in 510s, the Canvas free rides, and those work pretty well. I've also used trail running shoes in the past, something like the Saucony with the Terex footbed, something not too soft, so I wouldn't use like a Hoka or something, but something like a trail runner with like a good tread would be a good biking shoe. Anthony from Pasadena, yay! I love Pasadena. Let's see, Northeast Iowa, San Antonio. I've not tried the Tanis solid tires. So Eric, your brother just started the cross-country tour from DC to LA. What's the number one piece of advice for him? I would say, depending on the route, if it's a paved route and not something like ultra remote, like the thing that we remember the most from our cross country trip wasn't the scenery, but it was the people that we met, all the random acts of kindness. Um, you can't photograph that in an Instagram photo, but years later, decades later, we still remember, all the people that we stayed with, the people that bought us meals when we were on the road. So to be open and receptive to those human interactions, because I think long after the trip has been done, long after the beautiful scenic Instagram photos have been posted, the thing that we remember the most, and I think will happen to your brother as well if he's open to it, is like all the human interaction. Josh, that is the Obi-Wan. All right. What's up from LA? Atlanta. Nice. Sweet. I love Pasadena. My parents live in Sunland, so whenever I'm home, I'll at least do a ride out to Pasadena and spend some time there. So Matt, thank you from Bellingham. Um, let's see. Am I still shooting photography? Not so much. I'm focusing more on video. Part of it is because I'd hate to be a professional photographer these days. I don't know if you guys know, but like a decade ago, that's what I did in Long Beach. I shot portrait and food. It was that time when the industry was transitioning from film to digital, and it was tough making money then. And I think it's like really hard now, just because the level of photography from the average amateur, because of digital, because of all the online help, is just like it's so good. So you've just got to be either like the most amazing photographer or the most amazing marketer to make a decent living. So I think in terms of for us, in the YouTube space, there's not a lot of people focusing on this niche of cycling. So it gives, I see it as like an opportunity to stand out and provide something new. Our biggest challenge is in getting discovered, because, people don't know what the hell the Supple life is yet. um, let's see. Yes, Lucas, that would make you a gravel hipster. I do have a driver's license, but I've not driven a car in 15 years. But I do keep it current. Part of it is I don't like driving, and I'm one of those people like in the passenger seat that's like gripping onto things. So like I'd make a terrible driver. So, uh, So TLL, we bought a minivan about 3 years ago, but I've not driven it, and we only drive it. I don't know. We hardly drive it during the winter, and we don't drive it daily. So we were car free for a solid decade. Now we're car light. I've not interviewed the checkpoint. I've tried, no response. Uh, Jim, let's see. I'm actually enjoying Scotch more these days. I think Scotch is it's a little bit more complex than bourbon. I love bourbon. It's a great gateway to whiskey, but the flavor profiles of bourbon are fairly narrow. You've got your banana, your vanilla, caramel, those kind of sweet notes. Nothing very challenging, but with a whiskey, you get all those notes and more. You get things like iodine, like smoke, like tire fire. So like the range of expression of flavors in and Scotch is just it's bonkers. Yeah, Dirt Mulholland was that was one of our favorite rides. I've not done it in a while. Last time we did it would have been a decade ago, and I think I did it on a cargo bike. Yeah. So did we come up with the Supple life, or did you hear it from someone? We made a whole video on the origins of the Supple life. Basically, It started out as kind of like a disparaging hashtag for people with Compass tires. They'd get a flat and hashtag it Supple Life. And I think it was after a couple episodes of Bikes and Bourbon, Topper and I were just joking around. We're like, we should call it the Supple Life and just kind of embrace, all that entails. So that's kind of how it started. I know some of you guys may know Boys in the Hoods. They are a crew of folks in the Bay Area. Super fun. Got to meet them for a hot minute when they rolled through Portland when we lived there. They came, I think they were the first to kind of really make a very niche pop cultural thing. So this is their sticker. I think a couple of them are doing PvP this year, Paris Brest Paris. So good luck to those guys. Thanks, William. I'm glad you enjoyed the Couch to Kansas series. I think that's one of the coolest things that we produced on the channel. Definitely not from like the performance aspect of it, but in terms of creating like honest, authentic content. I kind of tried to relate the whole experience. I'm pretty proud of it. Of course, we wish that we would have finished it, but in some ways, that would have been too much of a fairy tale ending. So I like that, maybe we didn't get to complete it, but we could talk about the reality of attempting something and not doing it or not finishing it like the way you wanted. There's a lot of people that don't complete it. Their stories don't get told, so it's kind of like this assumption that everyone that does it just finishes it. So it was nice to kind of show like a different angle. Let's see. Douglas, thank you. Thanks for the super chat. Nice. Thanks, William. I'm glad you liked it. Yeah, so if you guys missed it, might turn on the light here. So we'll do a bike roll call. We've got Thesis bike. I'm going to do a live build of this on Wednesday. Hopefully I don't destroy it. This is the Cressbumbora. I tried to buy it off of Matt, but he needs it, so he's getting it back. This is the Bomb Track front squish dropper post. And back there is a Soma Wolverine and the Breezer radar expert that we just reviewed, boxed up to be sent back. So yeah. Let's see. Yeah, a little Macallan's a solid drinker. Talisman mic. There's one microphone on. I'm jury rigging a podcasting setup to use a wireless lab, so the audio is a little bit weird. But I will show you this. So if you're into Scotch, Aberlour, solid drinker. Bunnahabhain, also really good. These are both Speyside, so not Isla, not the super smoky stuff. A little bit more fruit forward, nice and rounded, pretty approachable for Scotch. I just finished this bottle. It's a small bottle of Kalila. If you like it on the smokier side, this is good stuff. Friar Kelton, thank you. Thank you so much. Sean, thanks for joining us. Hopefully we'll do a couple more of these. Live build of the thesis I'm planning for Wednesday, so it should be good. Hibiki Harmony. Yeah, I've tried some Hibiki, super smooth stuff. Sandra Chiabro, thank you so much. Thank you, I appreciate that. Yeah, being a pro YouTuber is hard. It's one of those jobs where, it's kind of like it's a bit of a golden cage because it seems like a super fun job, which it is. And because of that, like people are really resentful when you complain about it. Like you're living the dream, why are you complaining? But, like to be honest, it doesn't make a ton of money, and it's a lot of work to make the videos, and plus you have to deal with crappy comments. So it's kind of like, imagine just busting your ass off to something you believe in, not getting paid very much, and then someone like shitting on your desk every morning. That's how I would describe the YouTube life. Breezer bike versus Poseidon X. I've not ridden the Poseidon. Pretty, for a steel bike, sub 1000, the Breezer is a pretty solid option. What's been the most difficult life choice you've made to get to where you are now? I guess it would be forgoing the normal 9 to 5. So I've been personally, independently self-employed for over 15 years. So I had a job as an in-house graphic designer for a law firm in San Francisco. Left that, started the photography business, got into bikes, and then did the blog, and now this. So saying goodbye to the security of a paycheck, right? It's a trade-off. It's like you trade security for freedom, and I made that choice, over 15 years ago. But now I can't imagine. Well, sometimes I can imagine working in the office just for more security. But that was a real kind of, I guess, fork in the road. Yeah. How about the loss of privacy as a YouTuber? Yeah, there's definitely that. It hasn't been too problematic so far, knock on wood. It's funny. It's like I don't think we have very many viewers here in Missoula, so it's fairly anonymous. But there have been like unlikely places where I've run into YouTube viewers in the airport or something, which has been kind of cool. So yeah. Thank you, Simon. Thanks, Simon. Thank you, Joe. Thanks. I'm glad that I'm glad you guys are appreciating the hard work. I definitely question my sanity sometimes when I try not to look at things objectively, like as in hours of work versus income, because if that's how you measure success, this is the wrong job for you. At least at this level that we're at. But it's growing. It's becoming more. It's becoming more sustainable. How did they use your consultant knowledge and advice in the New Albany, Mississippi Tanglefoot Trail? We didn't actually consult on that. What we did was, what did we do? That was part of the press trip. So our deliverable was to make the video of the Tanglefoot. There wasn't a consulting aspect, although I do think it kind of nudged some businesses along the trail to continue to support cyclists because they saw the feedback from the video. Let's see. Yeah, GCN. I totally understand. I don't begrudge them doing sponsored videos. They've got a whole crew. They've got to make their money. So, it is what it is. But like that's why when they show a bike, they can't call it a review. It's like a presentation. For me, I'd like to think I'm reviewing bikes. Okay, you can debate about whether or not it's sponsored when a brand sends me a bike for free, but then I send it back. I kind of consider that as about as legit as it gets in for the bike review kind of industry, because I'm not taking ad revenue from them. It's different from like say bicycling that takes ad revenue and reviews a bike product from that same brand. I try to keep it pretty much on the level. And there's not like a quid pro quo with the bike brands, and I think that's one reason why some brands won't send bikes. So Um, my favorite weather to ride in is like 68 and sunny. Thought of gravel riding in the Philippines. I've been curious. I was born there. I haven't been back since I was a kid. And I actually follow some Filipino YouTubers, which is pretty cool. I know that there's a kind of a cool bike shop called the Bikery. I follow them on Instagram. So it's cool for me to see that there is at least what appears to be like a burgeoning bike culture in the Philippines. So I might have to go back and check it out. Cool. Glad I could help Queen Connect's Alpha Wolf. Um, yeah, well, that's my take. It's like I'm not keeping the bike, and you guys see the breezer's boxed up, ready to go back to them. And the bikes I do keep, I've bought. I was actually trying to buy Matt's Crest bike, but he won't let me buy it. So yeah, I watch Rides of Japan is a guy that does $100 bike packing setup. Awesome channel. I was going to do a channel roundup of alternative cycling channels because there are a few of us that are doing some cool things. Awesome, Jay. Yeah, if I ever go back there, I know my parents are going back in a couple months. Um, we'll see. We'll see. You'll have to. My memory of Manila is pretty much almost like getting run over by jeepney. So you have to show me where to ride. Let's see. I think I've got all the questions. Let's see. Yeah. Anything else to show you guys? Oh, got got one last thing. So you guys know I'm always on the search for lower gearing, especially since the wide range double hasn't been adopted yet. So one of I think my future mediocre mechanic videos is going to be installing this. Sorry, 1142 cassette, 10 speed, and trying to make it work with a Shimano 2x system. So we'll see. Future project. Cool, Dad Bod Biker. Glad you like the Journeyman. What's the latest painting? So Laura and I were recently at the Big Hole River. So that's that one. So nothing. This camera's weird. Oh, so nothing super crazy. Just kind of like quick sketches and stuff. Yeah. Here's another one. Sorry. Cool. Yeah. Thanks for asking. John, thank you so much. Thanks for supporting the channel. Yeah, the Journeyman's a great bike. I think initially a lot of people were surprised by that direction that Salsa took. Like, why are they, they were kind of on the premium end of, adventure by bike, and then they released the Journeyman, better price point. But it seems like it's selling pretty well, pretty popular bike by the comments on the channel, and it's cool. I mean, it's a lot of bike for not very much money. I mean, I certainly wish it was around when I first got into bikes. It would have been a perfect first bike. Are we doing RPI? Rebecca's Private Island is one of the few gravel events we really want to do. Don't know if we're going to do it this year, but it's definitely one of the gravel events that we want to do. We've done a little bit of riding in the area, a little bit of fishing, and it's an amazing part of the country. Scott in Detroit. When will I be? Probably once it starts snowing, I'm probably gonna stop reviewing bikes and just call the most supple bike of the year. And currently, I will tell you, it's going to be the Chris Bombora as of now, unless there's something that overtakes it. But we'll see. William, so I'm going to do a video on unpopular opinions that I have about bikes. I'm going to address the whole mechanical versus hydraulic disc brake thing. So just wait for that video. Would I consider a calendar? Possibly. We've done calendars in the past. I might do another with watercolors if I get enough images put together with it. Markel, the review of the Wolverine still coming up. I'm still writing it. So far so good. I might try with a different wheel set to see if it handles a little bit differently. Yeah, Simon, I'm still taking it through its paces. I've got a couple good rides in. I want to do a longer climb and a rougher descent in the area and film that. And I think by then I'll be ready to do the final review. Saracen, all those stuff. No, it's hard to get bikes from other places, other brands than the U.S. just because of shipping. So try your best. The opinion on that trail through Washington. I think you're talking about the the Palusa Cascade. It used to be called the John Wayne Trail, but they renamed it. That's an epic trail. The part out of Rattlesnake, closest or just outside of Seattle, to like Ellensburg, is pretty developed. I think past that it gets really rough. We've not ridden the rough portion, just the beginning part, but that would make a great kind of overnighter, family-friendly bike tour. It's not very steep grade, but the scenery is like top notch, so I definitely recommend it. Gus, any Black Mountain Cycles reviews coming? Unfortunately not. I reached out to them about reviewing a couple of their bikes, and small brand, not a lot of demo bikes, so not this year. So, all right. Well, I think I'm gonna wrap it up, guys. Thanks for helping me test out this live stream setup, and thanks for all the super chats, for all the people supporting the channel. Thank you so much, and we'll see you on Wednesday when I do the live build of the of the Thesis. So, and hopefully I'll get the screen thing figured out by then. So, all right, thanks guys.